Lazarus is an anime created by Shinichiro Watanabe, the man behind Cowboy Bebop, Samurai Champloo, and Space Dandy. As most of you know, Cowboy Bebop has quite the legacy. It's one of the shows that normalized anime as a mainstay in the West and holds a very special place in a lot of people's hearts as one of the greatest anime to ever do it. Samurai Champloo has legacy as well, but for different reasons, mainly focusing on its music and aesthetic more than the actual anime. So when it was announced that he'd be directing yet another anime, produced and animated by MAPPA, responsible for recent heavy hitters like Jujutsu Kaisen and Chainsaw Man, most people were excited, thinking that this was going to be an all-time great for the year. All of this sounds amazing on paper, but that description doesn't really fit the 7.5 to 7.3 average rankings on MyAnimeList and IMDb. Surprisingly, people don't really like this show for various reasons. People think the show is mid, overrated, not living up to their high expectations, or simply bad overall. And honestly, they couldn't be any more wrong.
Who the hell are those people?
We call ourselves Lazarus.
It's go time! We're here to save the world.
So basically, we're superheroes.
I found Dr. Skinner. It looks like there are thousands of him.
Go! I swear Skinner is the devil incarnate.
And I suppose that makes us the angels that are gonna kick his ass back to hell.
Do I have clearance to use an assault rifle?
You're authorized to use anything.
Are you actually enjoying this?
It's that obvious.
DEA, FBI! Lazarus! What's Lazarus?
We're superheroes.
He's totally out of his mind.
From anime legend Shinichiro Watanabe, Lazarus premieres April 5th at midnight in Toonami, next day on Max.
We start the series in a jail, overviewing the whole establishment before we get to see our main character, Axel Gilberto. He's visited by a woman named Hirsch, who asks him of a favor that might reduce his sentence. He proceeds to ask about the favor and we get introduced to Dr. Skinner. Skinner is a world-renowned scientist and a genius who 4 years ago developed a super drug by the name of Hopna. Hopna was a painkiller that not only took care of physical pain, but mental pain as well. It was so cheap that it dominated the market, becoming a one-size-fit-all solution to various problems in the medical field. It was titled as a miracle, freeing people from all suffering, and was celebrated around the world. 1 year after releasing this drug, Skinner went missing. However, due to the effects of Hopna on society, nobody really cared. Why would you worry about anything when you could just pop a couple and keep it pushing? However, now in 2052, 3 years after he went missing, he posts a video to social media. He talks about how not feeling pain is no different to being dead, and how we've missed the big picture. He believes that we, the human race, should be held accountable and pay for our sins. He did not develop Hopna as a painkiller you pee out in a couple hours, however. It remains in your body, and in 3 years, it will mutate, effectively killing everyone who took it. He has the cure to this mutation, however, with one precondition. Whoever finds him determines whether humanity continues or not, and in 30 days, the first users of Hopna will die. Axel's favor is to help her find Skinner, but before he answers, he disarms the officer, aims a gun at Hirsch, causing a holdup in the jail, and then asks to have his handcuffs removed. And upon the officers complying, likely to save Hirsch's life, he pockets the gun and races off. The title song, Lazarus, starts playing as we start to see what this show's action is made of. Axel bursts onto the scene, climbing up floors, disarming police officers, all with acrobatic speed and combat skill. And you know what, let me just stop being serious, okay? It's cool. Axel uses everything in his environment and anything at his disposal to get away from his pursuers, and it's genuinely just fun to watch him pull off everything with zero plan. Hirsch's team then sets out to catch him, and now there are two groups of people after him. The police trying to take him back to jail, and Hirsch's team trying to capture him prior to the police doing so. We see the chaos reigning throughout the city, hospitals overflown, pharmacies on fire, the stock market crashing, and the public rioting in response to the situation. We cut back to Axel, who successfully escaped the jail. After sweet-talking a police officer, attains a change of clothes, and hops on the train into Babylonia City. However, once he exits the train, the police continue hot on his trail. Throughout the entirety of Babylonia City, Axel is chased. However, due to his skills in evasion, he gets away, so they start using drones to follow him easier. That which he then promptly destroys one by one. Instead of attempting to catch him like the police, Hirsch's team aims to force him into a 1v1 scenario with one of their members, where they'll catch him there. This guy from Hirsch's team, later named Douglas, has him at gunpoint at the top of a roof, and after not falling for Axel's sweet talk, Axel walks off the roof and catches a ride on a drone on the way down. Axel then meets Chris, who catches him off guard by pretending to be a pushy fan, leading to him freezing awkwardly in the middle of a selfie, effectively tagging him and knocking him out. Axel has a dream and then wakes up in an abandoned barbershop, where we find out the people after him are all a part of Lazarus, a strike team created to find Skinner and effectively save the world. This is an amazing start to the series. With a time limit in the bottom right corner of every episode, it really puts stakes on the whole scenario and sets itself apart by having a timeline. Episode 2 starts with Axel, still where we left off in the barbershop, trying to once again attain his freedom by force. But then he's stopped by their handler, Hirsch, who has strapped everyone on the team with an armband. This is not only a multi-purpose tool to aid in missions, but to keep them in line. Everyone in Lazarus is in trouble with the law in some fashion, as we find out in later episodes. The next preceding episodes is the team going on missions to find Skinner, with their leads coming from Hirsch and information they attain about Skinner along the way. The team goes to his house, places he owns, people he knows. During this process, we find out more and more about him as a person, which begins to answer the question of who he really was and why he chose to do all of this. And bit by bit, we explore our characters, who they are, and why they're in this. Now, if any of this sounds even remotely interesting to you, please stop this video and go watch this show right now. I think you'd have a great time with it. This show is only 13 episodes, so you've probably watched longer series like Pokemon. I'd also advise you to finish the series before continuing this, because a lot of what I say going forward is me jumping around from plot point to plot point, and it won't make sense to somebody who hasn't watched the whole show. And last thing, I say this because many times I've had my reaction to something or a story in general ruined for me because I watched a video essay on it instead of just actually consuming the media. So, this is your last warning before we get into spoiler mode. Please watch Lazarus if you haven't, and if you have, awesome. Before we continue, this video is sponsored by no one, actually. I'm a very small channel, and as of recording this, I have 566 subscribers. I'm not going to put that statistic up on the screen, but I'm trying to make it to 1,000 by the end of the year. So if you enjoy any of the video essays or any other videos I make, please subscribe. It's free, and you can always choose to unsubscribe at the end of the day. Thank you, and please enjoy the rest of the video. Let's jump to episode 7. All the information on Skinner begins to start coming together. Skinner is not only a genius, but a very honest and giving person. We hear about his accomplishments, like winning multiple Nobel Peace Prizes and giving away the money. And most importantly, for episode 7's mission, where the team is tasked with basically pretending to go on vacation in remote islands Skinner did business in, they ultimately end up not finding much, but reflecting on the path that they've gone through just to get there. They look at the blue sky, which is far removed from Babylonia City's constant state of gray overcast. They reflect on the world and how in 2052, it's actively being destroyed, and you'll notice that the only one who seems to care about it is Skinner himself. And on the topic of not caring, it seems like after the initial wave of insanity, nobody in the world really cares about anything. Everyone continues on with their lives after 2 whole days pass. People still go out to the club, even consuming more Hopna than they did before. What I think Lazarus is trying to say here is that when you introduce the idea of having the effects of Hopna in the world, the ability to just not feel and opt out of any real pain, not only physically, but especially emotionally, the world as a whole just stops feeling things. The world the show takes place in isn't really feeling. People say the colors in the show aren't vibrant and alive like other anime, like Oshi no Ko, but honestly, I feel like that's the point. Because of Hopna, there's no need to feel or be in the moment. And because of this, it creates a heavy counter effect that society becomes blind to actual issues we can help change, like declines in mental health, racism, and climate change, like the episode entails. But whenever Skinner tried to say anything along the lines of this, everybody would just walk out of the meeting. He states to the United States directly, "What does a booming economy mean if we have nowhere to live on?" And then they promptly leave. Soon after, everyone in that meeting leaves, and Skinner is found alone in a room with his ideas and ideals for change that nobody seems to be bothered to care about. Normally this would be the dark villain origin story to his revenge plot on humanity, but Lazarus doesn't do that. Finding Skinner is a test to see if humanity at its core is still alive enough to want to live. And while everyone's looking for a savior so they don't have to take action, the team takes charge at a chance to save the world and define their own fate. Now that the main outline for the plot is out of the way, let's talk about the show's presentation. This show finds a way of striking a balance between futuristic and yet still realistic. And yes, I know it's still an anime, so you're still gonna have your put your bracelet here and it'll unlock situations, but as a whole, the show feels grounded. Like I stated previously, the show has a muted color scheme overall, yet this doesn't equate to a lack of detail. We see numerous examples of this, like the colors in episode 7, the effects of Hopna on people's eyes, and the animation when Elena's trying to run and catch a moving vehicle while she has a cold in episode 11. You can see how she almost trips and yet still keeps going, and how weak she feels banging on the window once she catches it. This show has a big bag of tricks to pull from when it comes to expression and color. But most importantly, they know when to use it and when to hold back. But one part they never hold back in is the fight scenes. So it turns out when you mix the director for John Wick and anime veterans, you get some of the highest stakes action this season. Watching Axel fight and always find a solution out of a situation he's in is like a treat to watch on screen. You see him doing the impossible time after time, yet the stakes are still high because you don't know if he could actually get hurt this time or not. He's still human, and the opponents improve from street-level thugs to spies, meaning he not only has to fight harder, but prioritize the mission over taking out whoever's in front of him. For me, it's just how smooth it feels to watch in motion. He fights like he's done this exact interaction dozens of times, even when he simply hasn't. He's excellent at turning tables, disarming people, and really just controlling the situation. Winning a fight doesn't always mean punching harder, and Axel shows us this by always fighting for an edge over his opponent. And the animation doesn't hold back either. We see first-person shots like in episode 1, join action into a helicopter chase in episode 4. Lazarus does an amazing job of being exciting, and the show's soundtrack, the jazz album done by Kamasi Washington, perfectly aligns with the show. I love how messy some of the songs feel, songs like Vortex, Relativity, and Line Memory, where the instruments are playing on their own, not necessarily in rhythm or cleanly, but like I said, it's messy, emblematic of the way things go in this show. It's more about functioning with the chaos or managing everything at once when it seems impossible, that heightens these moments for me. Tracks like Coleslaw and Hard Way to Wonder strike out as more common reflective tracks that normally play when they return to base. Not to mention the additional tracks created by Floating Points and Bonaboo to tie the whole thing together. To me, this show has beautiful presentation, down to the music, the colors, and the tone, which I find so important. Yes, the world is ending, but this random group of 20-year-olds aren't just gonna sit down and get sad about it for a whole month when they could try to fix it. And speaking of the group, I'm not gonna go over everyone individually, but the way this group slowly comes together through shared experiences and time with each other is a delight to see. A lot of the time in media, when you see a group of delinquents or criminals or social outcasts, I found they kind of hate each other at the start, and then after about 5 minutes of shared experience, they act like they've known each other for years. This group actually takes time in the month to warm up to each other, and they get a lot better at working together over time. In the beginning, nobody trusts Axel at all, but slowly they warm up to him because they spent time with him in all these missions. He's gone from the guy who's having fun doing this solely because he wants to smoke and enjoys the thrill in episode 2, to the guy willing to make the sacrifice play by jumping off the skyscraper and jumping onto the helicopter in episode 4, and by being the lead anchor on the field when working together to save Chris in episode 8. The team learns over time to stick their necks out for one another, and it's nice to watch the characters as they all feel like solo acts forced to work together, but begin to enjoy working together after some time. Now, I say all this because people don't like this show, like, at all. Whenever you look about opinions on this show, they'll do the exact same thing I did. Talk about the animation, the people behind it, and how they were looking forward to it, which is normal. But they always end off the sentence by saying, it's not good, or they enjoyed themselves but something's off, or it just doesn't sit right with me. But why is it? This show had a 7.5 to 7.3 average scores around the board while it was airing, we'll talk about that later, But what is this show doing wrong? Well, they say a comparison is a thief of joy, so let's get into the world of Lazarus criticism. The main reason why people don't like this show is because Watanabe created Cowboy Bebop. And while this show shares a lot of its traits, it's ultimately not that. And people aren't too pleased with that. They say the protagonist acts like Spike, but isn't. The team is connected, as the team in Bebop is, yet the team doesn't feel as strong. I feel I have a counterpoint to all of this though. Cowboy Bebop is a critically acclaimed anime, however you have to understand. It came out in 1998. For many English viewers out there, there wasn't much comparison at the time. And while it's a good show nowadays still, it's been almost 20 years at this point. Yes, Lazarus takes heavy keys and inspiration, but it's not like it's plagiarism, he literally made both series. If it was a sequel series, I could understand the idea of comparing it so closely, but it's not. Like it or not, these are two different series, and while I can understand the parallels here, I don't think Cowboy Bebop doing things a little bit better than Lazarus in most people's eyes makes it an inherently bad show, especially when they are trying to do different things in different ways. But unfortunately, that isn't the only big criticism this show faces. Reading reviews here, people love the first episode, but the following ones they don't really like how they pace the story. People often drop the show halfway through because they don't think that Lazarus likes to advance its characters or advance the plot. Even though the entire plot is these characters finding Skinner. When we aren't finding Skinner, we're finding out about the characters. And while a lot of their trails from these missions come empty, we see more about the world and how Skinner affected it, which raises the conversation in episode 7 about exploring parts of the world and the people that Skinner wanted the group to see. The craziest part about this bit of criticism is that the show cast this on its main cast in episode 9, where they pull Leland out of the main group into a board meeting with the government and ask why they aren't much closer to finding Skinner than 2 weeks prior. And he has to give reasons as to why Lazarus shouldn't disband as a whole. I've also seen people saying that Axel is this ore farmer who makes the plot stagnant because he's an untouchable force of nature, which on first glance is understandable, but funnily enough, the cracks start to form as soon as episode 3, when they run away from the locals who attack them. As cool as this drop-in is, it doesn't do anything to save Leland in this situation. In episode 5, while he seems like he has it under control without the assistance of Elena, he can't do anything about these swarm of robots. And my biggest example is in episode 8, when the mission was to save Chris above all. Axel not only gets snuck up on, but clocked in the head by a gun, doesn't even win this fight, and effectively gets bailed out twice by Leland and Elena. Not to mention how he fails to return in time, effectively getting Chris's girlfriend killed. Remember when I talked about this show's ratings and said we'd get back to it later? Yeah, this is later. The show's ratings dipped a little bit after the ending of episode 13, which would make you think the ending was bad. But let's summarize the key points before we make any claims. We left off in episode 9 when the group gets investigated, and while they survive being disbanded for the time being, this man takes a fixation on Axel's history, leading him to call an assassin to kill him, due to him being clinically tested on during his prison stays. After seeing Leland's background involving Skinner's doctor and his location, Doug and Elena try to find his location from the hacker in episode 5. Chris is still injured from episode 8, and Leland gets put on standby in the base if anything happens. We then return to Axel, who is currently trying to ensure the safety of the doctor who gave him the prototype to Hapna during his prison stay. He is then intercepted by the previously mentioned assassin, who is dead set on killing Axel. In episode 11, Axel faces off with the assassin in probably the best fight scene in the entire show. Elena trails the hacker while leaving Doug behind as a decoy. In episode 12, Axel loses to the assassin, ending the fight with a spear in his chest, and after being saved by Chris, the assassin leaves injured. Axel is then saved by Skinner's doctor and is out of commission for the time being, along with Doug. Elena finds the hacker and Skinner's location, which is in the homeless shelter from episode 3. What's left of the team prepares to embark there. However, Axel gets out of the hospital bed and goes up to the rooftop to finish his fight with the assassin. Axel fights him, but he's clearly injured and washed up. This makes the fight more intense because technically Axel doesn't even need to take this fight to find Skinner. At this point, he could have very well died and the story would have continued. Chris goes after Axel, who after one of the best scenes in the entire show, in the falling building, wins the fight due to the debris falling on his opponent. They then go all out to find Skinner and find the truth. They receive the cure to Hapna, and we find out in the airport when Skinner released all that gas from the project involving Hapna he was working on in his suitcase, is the day that not only Axel met Skinner, but lost his own parents in the day that Skinner lost faith in humanity. While Skinner didn't make Hopna into a weapon himself, it's because of that why he wasn't the quickest to stop them, and took the angle that he did. We also find out that everyone in Lazarus was in the airport at that time, and whoa, what? So you're telling me that everyone in that airport dies except the Lazarus group, which is basically a miracle, built a resistance to Hopna due to surviving this encounter. This could have been a cool twist to imply that they were the first users of Hopna, meaning that they were trying so hard to save themselves more than the rest of the world. However, this doesn't explain why everybody in this group had a reason to be in the airport at this time. Chris is a spy, Doug was probably still in college, Leland was a spy and was also probably still in college, and why would Elena, who escaped a cult, have any business in an airport by herself? What would have been better, in my opinion, would have been that Axel was the only one in the airport, and the group was fighting so hard to save him, and he would have died before anyone else, which is a part of the reason why he stays in the group at the end. Anyway, back on track, they distribute the cure to Hopna, everyone agrees to stay in Lazarus to fix more world issues, even though they are legally free by the end of the show, and after a couple credit scenes, the show effectively ends. Overall, that last plot point kind of stumbles, but ultimately, I don't think that makes this a bad ending. If anything, it just takes from a 9 to an 8, and the reason why it's not a 10 is because honestly, we could still get a season 2, which would make the ending that they do there more impactful due to there being less left on the table. Alright, so now that we have our intellectual arguments out the way, let's get our rapid fire section of shorthand criticism and comments that I've seen about the show, which are questionable to say the least.
Was anime always this bad? I watched anime when I was in middle school, and I put this on every Saturday night, and it's terrible. It feels like a poor man's attempt at writing a Call of Duty campaign. Replace Makarov with Skinner. But it's so weebish. Every episode is essentially mission briefing, villain of the week, that's somehow connected to the big bad, just like Call of Duty. 2D flat character making, 2D flat jokes, the choppiest fight scenes ever, villain of the week losing for being a misogynist and giving info that leads to the next mission. It's like when you go to anime move in theater and all the nerds laugh at the unfunny jokes. Sorry, all the nerds laugh, fuck.
Late to the party and just started watching this. I've been a Cowboy Bebop fan and enjoyed the style of the show, but I really can't get over Axel. Why recruit him? What does he bring to the team? I'm only on episode 2, but I can see how each member brings value. Doug is the leader, Sasha is the marksman, Elena is the hacker. I also don't know what Leland does. That said, why get such a wild card for such a high stakes mission? They devoted a whole day to capturing him. On his first mission, he proves that he just doesn't follow orders and runs around getting into fights. Have we considered watching the rest of the show? I only watched the first episode and the first few minutes of the second, and 2 scenes were enough to make me give up. I'm 30 years old, and unfortunately, I no longer have the patience to waste time on mediocre productions. If I'm going to invest my time, at the very least, the plot or the characters need to win me over, and in this case, neither did. The protagonist, who barely appeared for a minute, embodies everything I hate in a character. The slick, cool, forced type. The 2 scenes that made me make my decision were his escape from prison, a simply awful sequence, and the scene where he wakes up, does a pirouette, and steals the other character's gun out of almost nowhere. For me, that was enough. It didn't convince me, and honestly, there are much better things out there. Reviewers rating, 3.
3 out of 10 stars. Just the skin of Cowboy Bebop. The premise could be interesting, but the execution is too bland. The story feels empty and simply asks you to accept its implausibility. It's basically a protagonist on the run, ridiculously escaping from prison with a generic action, just filling in the blanks without any sense of danger or interest. It's written by someone who doesn't know how a drug comes to market, what scientists do, or how to make a prison feel real. I'm starting to think this is done with artificial intelligence, calculated to satisfy the algorithm needed to sell a cool anime. Just 1 episode and drop it.
Is it just me, or does Lazarus feel some sort of AI generated at times? I am not going to list every scene, or any examples really, but I feel some scenes were made with AI, due to the motion or quality of the animation, especially some of the faces and certain still shots. White people don't even say it's bad anymore, they just say it's AI generated. Let's not make this about race. Black people would say the same thing if they had internet access and knew what AI was. What? There are a couple decent reviews, and the general reception of the show is going up over time, but what I've noticed is that the core of the shorthand criticism on the show is honestly misplaced. I'm kind of a busy person, so every time I make a video essay, I always ask myself the question, why are you making this? And today the answer is, I really like this show. It's fun, it's chaotic, and overall just the best show I watched in spring 2025. In a season of anime which had a bunch of returning heavy hitters which went on to disappoint me, I enjoyed Lazarus Sunday every week. Seeing the suspense of the plot unfold and the unpredictable nature of what the crew were going to do this week was so much fun, and it became one of my favorite anime of the year. I'm not addressing this topic because people are hating on a show that I like. I have a soft spot for SAO, I'm used to it. But when I see a show like this that does so many things right, with such a terrible public image, I think about other media like video games. Take Pokemon Black and White for example. When it came out, everyone hated it. Now all of a sudden, it's one of the best games in the entire series. I don't want people to spin back on this show 3 years later talking about how it's peak, when in reality, it was never truly bad. I've always thought this show was great, and whether or not the public agrees, I would like to speak my piece, because I've never seen a show get overhated for such bad reasons. The hate this show receives practically killed its momentum for like 2 weeks, and it was a shame because the show didn't deserve it. It didn't do anything wrong or fall off, it was just getting blasted for stupid reasons, and I hate that. Overall, I think Lazarus is a great show, and if you don't like it, that's perfectly fine. But when most people say it's bad, they often forget to come up with a solid argument as to why, instead of just, I like Cowboy Bebop and it's not that, or this other show I like is better. It's always some basic bandwagon reason because you're dunking on a show because it makes you feel a part of something, I guess, on the internet. Even though it means nothing in the long run. I know the internet's most likely always going to be like this, but I wanted to not only make more people watch and enjoy this show, but ultimately enjoy what we had in the moment, instead of rather only understanding its value months or years later because there's no longer a rat screaming in your ear telling you it sucks. I love Lazarus and its refreshing ideas to the current anime landscape, and I think you can too. This has been 7 Aces signing off. Thank you for watching until the end. Take care of yourselves, and I'll see you guys next time.